You've taken every shot you can imagine. You've been criticized, attacked, called every name in the book. They've turned the judicial system. How do you deal with that stress in your most private moments?
Number one, I don't like thinking about it. Number two, I have tremendous support. I have the people's support. I think if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to handle it so easily. When a judge who has conflicts like nobody's ever had wants to put me in jail, and I'm the Republican candidate. I was president. I'm leading the Democrat by a lot. I like not to think about it.
All right, folks, quick video for you here on this Friday night, but we may have gotten some news today out of the New York legal system that could be a serious game changer for Donald Trump. At least it should be under a fair judicial system, which also we've known does not exist in Manhattan. And so we'll have to see ultimately where this goes. But for the longest time, we have obviously been suspicious about the jury in the Donald Trump criminal case. And frankly, I think a strong argument could be made. The trial never should have happened in Manhattan to begin with. But today, Judge Merchan sent a letter to Donald Trump's criminal defense team suggesting that there may have been some slight violation of protocol on part of some of the jurors in this case. At least that's what a certain social media post appears to suggest. And so long story short, what happened here allegedly is that prior to the conviction, a whole day before it was announced, someone went on Facebook and said, my cousin is one of the jurors and already confirmed that, yes, Donald Trump is getting convicted. And, you know, obviously leaking to your family member, telling them in advance what has happened. If you ever sat on a jury or you know anything about that, that's a huge violation of conduct, because one of the big things is you're not supposed to discuss the ongoing details with basically anyone else. That includes family members. But even then, on top of that, your family member allegedly is so stupid here that they post about it publicly. This is something that could put the entire conviction of Donald Trump in jeopardy if they suggest misconduct. And if not, I think it is certainly strong grounds for him in a appeals court. And so we'll have to see what happens. But I will read you the article here from Fox News that tells you the whole story about how one stupid juror may have jeopardized the entire Democrats' game plan, which is kind of hilarious to see. And by the way, that's the best case scenario. Let me just say that on defense of the juror, if any of this is true, is that, hey, you know, they just talked about it. He told his cousin was stupid and leaked it to the rest of the world on social media. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario could be, and you'll see here, that it actually proves the jury already made up their minds long beforehand and was biased against Donald Trump from the beginning, and it was certainly not a fair jury of his peers. So let's start reading here from this article from Fox News. All right, so here's what happened. The judge presiding over former President Trump's New York trial has notified his defense team on Friday of a comment that was left on the court's public Facebook page that implies one of the jurors may have discussed the guilty verdict with the family before the trial had concluded. Fox News has obtained this letter from Judge Juan Merchan, and it says this. It says, today, the court became aware of a comment that was posted on the Unified Court System's public Facebook page, which I now bring to your attention. In the comment, the user Michael Anderson states that, quote, my cousin is a juror and says Trump is getting convicted. Thank you, folks, for all of your hard work. And that's the letter that was showed there. Now, in fairness, and the reason I keep using the word allegedly, because I don't know, I would think that if they're going through all this process, they've already looked into this and they think the guy probably was actually his cousin. But in fairness, it could be someone who's just basically trolling on social media and was just saying stuff that is not even remotely true, and that does happen. And so I'm gonna leave that possibility out there because I don't know. Now, in fairness, I would think the court may have looked into it, but maybe they really are just leading us along, wasting everyone's time. And so that's something to consider. But clearly something is going on here if the judge is already willing to send that letter to Trump's attorneys. So apparently it's currently being investigated. The comment was posted on May 29th regarding oral arguments in the 4th Department of Appellate Division unrelated to this proceeding. The profile for Michael Anderson has little publicly available information, but the user identifies himself as a trans-abled and professional S-word shiz poster, right? And so that does suggest, on one hand, either it is just a loser leftist or whatever, or on the other hand, maybe it could just be a troll. And so again, that's what the possibility I'm leaving out there. I don't know why the judge would send a letter and make a big deal. They wouldn't look into this first, but regardless, okay, that is something to consider. But this is what we are publicly being told at the moment. A Trump campaign official told Fox News Digital that they are now investigating the matter. Al Baker, a state spokesperson, said Friday that, as appropriate, the court informed the parties once it learned of this online content. And this post came a day before Trump was found guilty on all 34 counts of, falsifying business records in the first degree, blah, 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 blah. So again, folks, this is what is currently going on. And so I'm not exactly sure what it means that Trump's attorneys are investigating the matter, but I would have to assume maybe they're looking into this guy and seeing if that guy's really his cousin, and maybe they can look into conversations or records that they might have. I don't know. Still, regardless, assuming that this is all true and this really did happen, this juror was leaking information, again, huge misconduct on the jury, and that could indicate some type of mistrial that ultimately goes up to appeal. Or maybe the case is thrown out altogether, but still something to consider. You may look at that and say, objectively speaking, I mean, that's not a fair trial. Donald Trump should be acquitted, right? But it's New York. Okay, so that's something else to consider. You may say it's totally unfair to keep Donald Trump convicted when you see this is what the jurors were doing. But again, in fairness, was any of this trial fair? Was it fair that Donald Trump's expert witness was not allowed to testify? Is it fair that from a legal perspective, Donald Trump was basically made unable to testify in this case because the judge allowed the questioning to be about anything that was unrelated to the case, and it was just total misconduct? And again, we know exactly how this goes. Was it fair that this trial happened in Manhattan when there's obvious political bias there, and it should have been moved to somewhere like Staten Island like they did for the Rodney King thing back in LA in the 90s? Absolutely not. But this is New York, and so we'll ultimately see. Even if this is true, I'd be curious about whether or not they do a single thing about this, or this even at all aids him in the appeals court. In other news, just to give you an idea of how crooked of a state New York is and why I still sound kind of pessimistic about the whole thing, got this headline today. Found it to be very telling about the situation. It says, breaking, multiple Trump supporters have been outside Trump Tower unfurling a massive thin blue line Trump flag. Now, obviously, if you know, thin blue line is meant to support the police, right? It's a pro-law enforcement flag, basically saying we back the blue here. And read what happens next, okay? The New York police are on the scene after arresting at least 3 of the Trump supporters outside Trump Tower. The supporters had previously unveiled the flag. They were instructed to not go protest in the street, and they did do it in the street, and NYPD arrested them, which I think really does tell you a lot, right? Because here they are, they're unveiling a flag saying we support the police. And maybe that's a bit of a wake-up call for conservatives sometimes, especially in a place like New York. Is law enforcement really an entity that's on your side? Well, that says so much about it, right? They unveil a flag saying we support the police, and the police arrest them. And you may say, okay, but they're not supposed to be in the street, so that's why they're breaking the law. Fair enough. But does New York arrest anyone? Okay, if BLM did this, if Palestine did this, would they be making a single arrest? Absolutely not. And in those cases, they probably will get feisty, they'll give the cops a hard time. But in this case, they're just like, nope, lock you up. We see how the New York criminal justice system works. But hey, do the same thing, which again, maybe you could say, they shouldn't have been in the street, but do the same thing supporting Donald Trump, immediately you go to jail. And so if that's the system we're working with on so many levels, I don't know if I have the greatest faith necessarily. The good news, however, is we have new polling data showing that the bogus conviction against Donald Trump is not working out for the Democrats politically. Check this out. I believe this was on Thursday. New poll from Fox News shows Donald Trump up by 5 in Arizona. Now, obviously, Arizona is a state that allegedly went blue in 2020. It went kind of uber blue in a sense in 2022. Trump now up +5, pretty solid margin there. And he's also up 5 even when you add in the third-party candidates. Also up 5 in Nevada. This is a state that has been trending a little bit to the red, but I believe has not gone Republican in a presidential election since George W. Bush. Okay, it's been a long time. It was part of sort of the old Republican coalition that, disappeared, during the 2010s and Obama and all this stuff. Now Nevada on the way back. Could Donald Trump be the first Republican in a long time to win the state of Nevada? Certainly seems like it's trending that way. Also, again, you add in the third-party candidates, makes no difference. Donald Trump's still leading there. Here is the big news. In the state of Virginia, which is a blue state, but had a slight trend to the right, sort of centrist Republican Glenn Youngkin wins the governorship there in 2021. In the state of Virginia, per the Fox News poll, Donald Trump and Joe Biden are now tied. This comes off the heels of Decision Desk making an aggregate of their 16 polls that showed Biden only leading in Virginia by 1 point. Could the state of Virginia now be in play for Donald Trump? That would be huge news for Republicans if that were true. You add in the third-party candidates, Biden does lead by 1, and so maybe that's something else to consider. But still, Virginia is a blue state, guys, okay? Let's talk about the D.C. metro area. You talk about Richmond. This state's been blue for a very long time. Now it is within 1 at the presidential level. That is a huge deal. Again, Trump leading by 4 in Florida. Maybe that's a little small. Some people are raising red flags about that, but I would suggest, let's be real, Donald Trump is going to win Florida by much more than 4. And when you add in the third-party candidates there, Donald Trump leads in Florida by 7. And so that's probably more the margin we'd expect. So yeah, with that said, folks, let me know your thoughts on all of this here today in the comment section down below. What do you think is going to happen with the Trump jury in that whole situation? What do you think of the polls, et cetera, et cetera? Do you think Donald Trump will win his appeal? And most importantly, do you think Donald Trump will win the 2024 presidential election? Would love to hear your thoughts, but until next time, everyone have a very great rest of your weekend. Alpha moves only. God bless and peace.